Hello, welcome back to the channel. So as you know, I've got an electric vehicle, but I don't have the ability to home charge because I haven't got a driveway, which means I have to rely on the public charging network. So I'm quite lucky that I've got places where I can charge for free or very, very cheap. But that did inform my decision recently to sell my MG ZS EV and buy a Tesla Model 3 long range, so I'd have to charge less often. So the question I've got in my video today is, how much does it actually cost to charge if you have to rely on public chargers? So what I've done is gone through some of the biggest charging networks that I know of in the UK. So things like the GridServe, Osprey, and done a comparison of their prices. So for this I've only looked at what's called rapid chargers, so these are chargers above 50 kilowatts. There are a multitude of what's called fast chargers, which are at 7 kilowatts, which you'll find in destinations such as council car parks and stuff like that. But there's so many of those run by so many different companies, it would make this video incredibly long. So I've put this together as if you buy an EV, if you're going on a long journey, you want to stop and charge quickly and then continue your journey, because that's what we've done a lot of as well when we go up to places like Nottingham and Yorkshire, when we go to teach tango, or even when we go to visit my partner's parents down in Southampton. So I've just looked at where is the cheapest place. So what I'm going to put up on the screen in a minute is a table which has a column with the list of companies, the power of their chargers, so in kilowatts, the price per kilowatt hour, and then in the final column I've split this down into what would happen if your car averaged 3 miles per kilowatt hour and what happens if your car averages 4 miles per kilowatt hour. What is the price per mile for those two scenarios, because that covers pretty much the range of EV efficiencies at the moment. So before I continue, if you found this video interesting or any other stuff interesting, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. Okay, so again, before I go fully into this table, we should obviously do a comparison to ICE cars as well. So if you have a car, whether petrol or diesel, and it does 50 miles per gallon, that's probably a little bit on the optimistic side for petrol cars, but certainly any standard diesel will be able to do 50 miles per gallon. All you have to do is look at the price in the forecourt that you look at, so say it's £1.50 or £1.60. If you divide it by 10, you get the rough price per mile. So if you see diesel at £1.60, it's going to cost you roughly 16p a mile if you have a car that does 50 miles to the gallon. If your car is more efficient, then obviously that price goes down by the factor of efficiency, so think about it in percentage terms. So if your car does 55 miles, then you take 10% off that value, so it'll drop to about 14p. So that's what we should really be comparing our electric cars to see if it's actually worthwhile you getting one if you have to rely on public chargers and you can't charge for cheap. So here's the table. So as you can see, I've done a comparison of Tesla, GridServe, Applegreen, Osprey, Ionity, Instavolt, BP Pulse, Shell and PodPoint. These are all the chargers that I've seen or used. There are, as I say, probably more and more companies springing up all the time to install these sort of things, or there might be subsidiaries of these companies also setting up. What I've done is gone on their website, and if they've told us the price per kilowatt hour, I've taken it from there. If I couldn't find that, I've used my own knowledge or my own local charging points to fill those in. And also what I haven't taken account is any discounts for subscribing to services. So a couple of these services have the ability for you to pay a monthly subscription, and therefore you get a cheaper price. So I'm going to start off with GridServe. I'm going to ignore Tesla for the time being. So GridServe, they offer a range of chargers up to 350 kilowatts. So depending on what charge you've got in the car, it's best to choose which one you want. But they all charge 69p per kilowatt hour. So if you're on a 50 kilowatt charger or 350, it's 69p per kilowatt hour, which means if your car did 3 miles per kilowatt hour, it would cost you 23p a mile, or if you did 4 miles per kilowatt hour, it would be 17p a mile. So more expensive than diesel and petrol. Next up I have Apple Green, similar to GridServe, common in UK services, again more common in UK services. So their price seemed to vary between 57p and 65p. So if you find the one that's charged to 57p, which I think might be the lower power ones, their website isn't particularly clear, you'd be paying between 19 to 22p, depending on your efficiency of your car. Or if you're on the 65p, which I think is probably the more common ones, you'll be paying between 14p and 16p. Sorry, that's the wrong way around. If you find the 57 one, you'll be paying between 14p and 16p. And if you found the 65 one, which I say is the more common one, you'll be paying between 19p and 22p per mile. So if you found the cheaper one, it's comparable to diesel. If you are on the more expensive one, it's more expensive than diesel. Then we have Osprey. On their website they say their chargers are 50 kilowatt pluses. I've only ever seen a 60 kilowatt one. And they charge 79p per kilowatt hour, so quite a big step up from the other two. So this would mean you'd be paying between 20p and 26p per mile if your car averages between 3 and 4 miles per kilowatt hour. So again, more expensive than ICE fuel. Ionity, again these say they have charges up to 350, they charge 74p, and that would then cost you between 19 and 25p a mile. Instavolt, their charges come between 50 and 150 and are the most expensive on this list at 85p per kilowatt hour, meaning 21 to 28p per mile. BP Pulse, they do 50 to 150 kilowatt chargers, charging between 79p and 85p a mile, so right up there as the most expensive. So as you can see, this will cost anywhere between 20p and 28p per mile, depending on which price you pay and your efficiency. Then we go on to Shell. Their claims say 25 to 150 plus. So 25 kilowatts is very low. You can almost get a free phase charging at that on AC. So and they charge 81p no matter what speed you're charging at. So again, that will cost you between 20 and 27p. Or I should say that these prices have been rounded up and down to the nearest pence. And then finally, you have PodPoint. So PodPoint look like they install in a car park, something like a Tesco's or a Lidl, and then they let the shop decide how much they want to charge per kilowatt hour. So when I started using the PodPoint in Tesco's, it was about 28p per kilowatt hour. That's gone up now to 62p per kilowatt hour, which is still cheaper than everything else on the list. But the only chargers I've ever found from PowerPoint only charge at 50 kilowatts, which is fine in the MG because it only had a maximum charging speed of 70. But in my new Tesla, or second-hand Tesla, but my Tesla, which charges 250, it would take quite a long time. But that would cost between 16 and 21p per mile. So that 16p per mile is, again, comparison to petrol and diesel at the moment. So finally we have the Tesla one. So this is the UK's biggest charging network. Lots of these other ones claim about being the most efficient charging network, or the fastest expanding charging network, or Europe's biggest charging network, or things like this. Tesla are the biggest in the UK. They have more charge points, rapid chargers than anywhere else, and they're situated a lot in service stations, and there's normally big banks of them. They are all rated at 250 kilowatts, which is the fastest that any charger Tesla can charge. Tesla are starting to open up their charging network to non-Tesla EVs. And their prices seem to vary between where you're charging and the time of day. So they normally have a off-peak rate, a standard rate and a peak rate. and as I say, it varies depending on where you go to, and this price seems to vary between 30p and 70p, although sometimes they even allow you to charge for free for a certain pound time if it's midnight or something like that, which means that you can pay anywhere between 8p per mile to 23p a mile based on that figure. So something I haven't covered in this is sort of reliability of chargers. This is very difficult to know about, as I've only ever really used GridServe. I tried InstaVolt once and couldn't get it to work. BP Pulse I have used, but not under the BP Pulse name, which is odd enough. PodPoint have always been quite reliable, and as soon as I get my V5 form for my Tesla, I'll be able to set up the app and be able to use the Tesla chargers and see what they are like. Anyway, hope you found this video useful. As I say, please hit the subscribe button if you did, and I'll see you in another video very soon.